In 1932, a man named Ronald Read started buying stocks, one stock a month, quietly. For 60 years, he pumped gas. He swept floors as a janitor at J.C. Penney. He drove a second-hand car and held his coat together with a safety pin. So when he died in 2014 and the lawyers opened his estate, nobody was ready for the number they found. $8 million. No lottery, no inheritance, no business. Just one boring habit, repeated for 50 years. And it's number 6 on this list. Today, 7 ordinary people, normal jobs, normal paychecks, who quietly built fortunes, and the honest truth about how they actually did it, including the part most money channels leave out. We start with a woman the stock market was supposed to crush. Anne Scheiber was an auditor for the IRS. She was passed over for promotions her whole career, and she retired in 1944 with about $5,000 to her name. Most people would call that a quiet, modest ending. Anne called it a starting line. She lived on almost nothing. The same apartment, the same coat for decades. And she put every spare dollar into stocks of companies whose products she actually used and understood. Then she did the hardest thing in investing. Nothing. She held. For 50 years. When she died in 1995 at 101, that $5,000 had become $22 million. Her edge wasn't picking. It was patience most people simply don't have. Sylvia Bloom worked as a legal secretary in Brooklyn. 67 years. Same law firm. She took the subway to work into her 90s. Here's the quiet genius. Every time the lawyers she worked for bought a stock, Sylvia would buy a smaller amount of the very same stock for herself. No inside tips. Just public trades. Copied in miniature. Over and over. For decades. Her own husband never knew the size of it. When she died, she left around $9 million, most of it to scholarships. You don't need original ideas. You need to act on good ones, consistently, for a very long time. Russ Gremel lived in the same brick house in Chicago for almost 95 years. Decades ago, on the advice of a friend, he put about $1,000 into a single company, Walgreens. Then he forgot about it. On purpose. He never traded it. Never panicked. Never sold. 70 years later, that $1,000 was worth $2 million, which he gave away to build a wildlife sanctuary. Now be honest with yourself here. Betting everything on one stock is dangerous, and we'll come back to that. But Russ's real lesson is time. He gave one decision 70 years to work. Grace Groner was a secretary at Abbott Laboratories for 43 years. In 1935, she bought 3 shares of Abbott stock, about $180. That's it. 3 shares. She never bought more. But she did one thing religiously. Every time the company paid a dividend, she used that cash to buy a little more stock. Automatically. That's called reinvesting. And it's the quiet engine under almost every fortune on this list. 3 shares. Plus reinvested dividends. Plus 75 years. Turned into $7 million. Small amounts. Reinvested and left alone. Compound into numbers that look like typos. Not every fortune on this list is measured in millions, but this one might be the most powerful. Oseola McCarty washed and ironed other people's clothes in Mississippi for over 70 years, $1 or $2 at a time. She never owned a car. She walked everywhere. And she saved, quietly, in the bank, for a lifetime, until she had around $280,000. Then she gave $150,000 of it to a university she never attended, to fund scholarships for students she'd never meet. How much you make is not the same as how much you keep. She proved it with a washboard. Which brings us back to the janitor. Ronald Read didn't just save. He invested, slowly, into big, boring, dividend-paying companies he understood. Banks, utilities, consumer brands. He bought them in small pieces, reinvested the dividends, and never sold in a panic. Not in the crashes, not in the scares. He spread his money across dozens of companies, so no single mistake could sink him. That last part matters. When he died, his $8 million portfolio held more than 90 different stocks. The safety pin wasn't poverty. It was a man who simply never needed to look rich. And the largest fortune on this list started with the smallest paycheck. Theodore Johnson joined UPS in its early days. On a modest salary, a mentor gave him one rule: take 20% of everything you earn and invest it before you spend a cent. So he did, automatically, on every raise, on every bonus. For his entire career, he never felt the missing money because he never let himself get used to it. Decades of automatic investing and compounding turned a working man's income into more than $70 million, and he gave tens of millions of it away. To education, pay yourself first, automate it, and let time do the heavy lifting. So what actually connects them? Not genius, not luck chasing, the same 4 boring moves. Every time, they spent far less than they earned. They invested early. They reinvested everything, and they left it alone for decades. That's it. But here's the honest part. Most of these stories skip. This is survivorship bias. We celebrate Russ and his one Walgreens bet. But for every Russ, plenty of people bet on one company and lost everything. The safe version of these lessons isn't pick the one winner. It's what Red actually did. Spread your money wide, keep costs low, automate it, and give it time. Quiet, diversified, patient. Beats clever almost every time. That's the real Money Almanac. If one of these surprised you, tell me which in the comments. And if you want money explained honestly, no hype, no get rich quick, subscribe. New breakdowns every week. This was the Money Almanac.